Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. Welcome to my channel. My name is Samuel and I want to make self-growth normal. If you want to make self-growth normal, then make sure to smash that like button. When I think of Ego is the Enemy, I think of his other book, Obstacle is the Way, that I reviewed, where it's kind of like, what is there to be learned from this book? Isn't the title of the book really all you need to know? With that book, I kind of feel like, spoiler, it's not really that much of a spoiler. There's a lot more to it than that. The title is kind of exactly what the book is about, fundamentally, and I was hoping that this book was the same in that sense. When I saw it at first, this whole time I haven't reviewed it because I was like, I feel like I know enough about the ego. Maybe my ego was in the way, right? And maybe the way is the obstacle, and my ego was the obstacle. I don't know what I'm saying. But there has to be a reason this book is so popular, right? The author begins by telling his own story in a way that really kind of only comes off as arrogant. In retrospect, it's probably sarcasm, but I couldn't really tell based on his narration. He then says that, with all the things I faced along the way, I relied on philosophy to help myself understand what was going wrong on the inside as I moved forward. History books are filled to the brim with visionaries, obsessed visionaries. They remade the world in their image with sheer, almost probably irrational force. But if you go looking and you look a little deeper, you will find people putting high goals and purpose above fame and recognition. You will find people smashing that like button in case you haven't already for the YouTube algorithm. So the book is based on the assumption that your ego is not forced to save you, but it can be managed and directed. The book looks at William Tecumseh Sherman, Katharine Graham, Jackie Robinson, Eleanor Roosevelt, Ben Franklin, Bill Walsh, Angela Merkel, and George C. Marshall. In this review, I'm going to talk about insights that I got from the book, each part of 3, what surprised me about the book throughout the chapters. I'm also going to talk about top helpful negative Audible reviews, which is my favorite part of my reviews recently. Those usually bring to light what I think could be different about a book that I didn't bring up at all in my own review. Part 1 is Aspire. I think this is the type of book you can't really check out without at the same time looking at yourself and how you conduct yourself and thinking about that, changing the questions you ask yourself. What are you chasing in your life right now? Are you chasing an identity, a reputation, or are you chasing a purpose? What are you not willing to accept about yourself? What don't you realize that you have the power to change? The stories about Howard Hughes, and Jackie Robinson are stunning examples of course, Robert Greene, author of 48 Laws of Power, and his mentoring of Ryan Holiday. Holiday likes to tell these short stories throughout his books and then reflecting on them pretty concisely. It's a very, very, very Green thing to do. How he does it, and he's like, we all have this in our lives, and he goes from there. I loved the chapter, Work, 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 where he says basically how quick we are to just ignore how much work there is to be done, which is pretty much an infinite amount. I mean, if you think about it, humility is it's almost like a mental state that we have to cultivate for ourselves. Part 2 is Success. The book is quite evidently written for people who are already probably on a path of success in some calling. It assumes, at least the nature of the book, it comes off as that the reader or listener is ambitious and industrious, and if not, they're working toward a mindset of those things at least. And I feel like it's probably super difficult to put together a book like this one without sounding like some kind of a know-it-all. So the author did I was surprised. He did an impressive job with this. My favorite part of the whole book is called Meditate on the Immensity. In this moment, he was experiencing what the Stoics call sympathia, a connectedness with the cosmos. A French philosopher has referred to it as the oceanic feeling, a sense of belonging to something larger, of realizing that human beings are an infinitesimal point in the immensity. I live for this. I live for moments like this. For people that have moments like this in their lives every day, call it dramatic if you want, but there is no feeling like it. At least one that you can experience for free and without the use of scheduled substances. Is there? Part 3 is Failure. I also loved the chapter about alive time versus dead time, where you have so much time to do not really that many things. Your freedom is a little constrained. Sound a little bit familiar to what's happening right now, or what was maybe happening like a month ago. With that time, you can choose to either make the rest of your life so much better or so much worse. When I was caught with weed right after I turned 18, I felt like I had that choice. It was the first time in my life, and this is, by the way, this is like a big example of me taking control of my life before I got into all this self-development stuff. There were years and years and years and years I didn't do anything like this. So I don't mean to sound like I'm bragging, but I was like, okay, I got caught with weed. I'm never gonna mess with that stuff ever again. I'm gonna prove that I'm better at life without it. No offense to people who don't feel this way. I love you guys. Hope you've been staying safe. I'm gonna work out every day. I'm gonna eat healthier. I'm going to get a high-paying job ASAP and pay the whole fine ASAP. And I did all those things, and I did them ASAP. And my life totally changed in a period of, what was it, 6 months? I think ARD ended in October? It was 6 months, something like that. I think that's really impressive. Really impressive is nothing at all compared to like Malcolm X and what Ryan Holiday has to say about him in the book. I don't know, that's one of the like greatest long-term victories in my life. That's what that felt like. I don't talk much about myself in these reviews. Maybe this is the wrong, definitely not the best book to do that with. What did negative reviews have to say, and do I agree with them? A 1-star review by Zach only made it in 2 hours to the audiobook. It seems to bounce from quote to quote with filler in between, like a college freshman trying to hit a minimum page requirement. I think Holiday does a lot of quoting personally. I had to sort of try to ignore the quote to reflection ratio. I think it was a little bit worse in Obstacle is the Way. It still came off more to me as like an author who quotes more than he needs to without carefully considering his own quote to reflection ratio. It doesn't sound like he's trying to hit a minimum page requirement. It's like this guy just includes quotes in his reflections of other quotes. But if you get this book, I highly recommend focusing way more on the value in each quote than how many quotes there are in proportion to reflection. Would you agree that that is an obstacle anyway? Because let's be honest, the obstacle is the way, isn't it? A 2-star review by a guy named Robert, whose last name hopefully is not Green, says the content is thin and the point is obvious. Yikes. Thin content. There seems to be a trend in taking classic knowledge and rehashing it for anxious West Coast and Bay Area types. That's a type of person? Who else does this? What trend? Mark Manson comes to mind. But I like Manson and Holiday a lot, and I'll explain why in just a second. He says this is a case of networking buddies doing each other a favor. Isn't just about any book promotion from a well-known author an example of that? Here he trashes something that many people trashed in negative reviews of Obstacle is the Way. Warning on narration. Ryan did a selfie on narration. A selfie? A selfie? A selfie. I have to say, I do think Holiday seriously needs a narration coach because the quality of how he uses his voice simply cannot keep up with the quality of how he makes his points. That's cool, that kind of rhymed. For me, I had to listen to the first few hours of the audiobook twice, just to realize how unexciting it kind of sounds compared to his voice in the interview with Tim Ferriss in the end credits, which by the way takes up, I don't know, like a quarter of the book or something. But I think rehash is a harsh word. I like to think of it more as accessible repackaging. What if I think that Stoicism, for example, is super boring? Because to be honest, I kind of do. Most people do. The words virtue, justice, prudence, I don't even know what that means. Maybe this is coming from an angle that just a vast majority of people we just would not agree with at all, but it is not sexy, it is not fun, no one thinks that it's interesting, like, and by no one I mean a generalization, but I'm willing to bet that so many people have been very easily and with just such minimal friction, they've been introduced to Stoicism through Ryan Holiday's work. And that's what I love the most about him as an author. He talks about sports, he talks about business, activism, American history, and just far more recent examples of successful people people than simply quoting Seneca or Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus or Zeno. And if that comes off as taking classic knowledge and rehashing it for anxious West Coast and Bay Area types, then I clearly have not been living in Pennsylvania for my whole life. Have I? Quotes. Impressing people is utterly different from being truly impressive. A man who thinks all the time has nothing to think about but thoughts, so he loses touch with reality and lives in a world of illusions. The more creative we are, the easier it is to lose the thread that guides us. Even the tallest mountains have animals that, when they stand on them, are taller than the mountain. Direction 1. I recommend this book for anyone who doesn't understand their own emotional shortcomings. This book is a solid walk around of that, where we experience what seems like our most unexpected pitfalls. And to be honest, since finding out that Robert Greene mentored this guy, I simply can't help from time to time comparing them and just Robert Greene coming out on top just about every time. I'm definitely biased though. I mean, Greene is definitely like near the top of my favorite authors list. But I really couldn't imagine Greene writing a book specifically about something like this, like stoicism or ego, because Greene simply, I don't really think he has that much of an interest in focusing on one particular topic for much longer than a quarter of this book's length. Direction 2. If you like this book, I would still check out Obstacle is the Way, and I've heard really good things about Stillness is the Key, both of them by Ryan Holiday. All of these things fundamentally revolve around Stoicism, and for probably the 97.5th time in this review, Ryan Holiday is known for his ability to teach Stoicism to broader, more, far-reaching audiences of self-help. As far as Greene books, though, if you want to talk about like self-awareness and shortcomings, check out Laws of Human Nature for sure. Most people might not say that's the best Greene book to start with, but I don't really care because, in my opinion, it's probably the most divergent. Greene is kind of known for his divergence in subject matters. Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video if you want to check those out too. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below. Also hit me up on Instagram, and also let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't get why people watch all the way to this point in my videos and they don't subscribe, but if you have subscribed and you want to turn it up just a notch and turn on that notification bell to receive a notification every time I drop a new video, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere, and I will see you then.